Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is a psychological horror film from the United States, English language, released in the year 2019, directed by Josh Lobo, and this film is called I Trapped the Devil. So I Trapped the Devil is about this main character. He has a wife and he's travelling to the remote countryside to try and reconnect with his brother. His brother is a recluse, he's slightly strange and awkward, but this main character believes that reuniting with his brother is the right thing to do, but straight away when they get to the house, they realise something is off, that the brother is acting very strangely and this main character wants to get to the bottom of it. And so he realises that this brother has a man in the basement and he's not letting him go. And so the main character says, "What are you doing? Release him before it's too late, you get into a lot of trouble." But the brother says, "No, it isn't actually a man, it's in fact the devil, and that if he keeps him in the basement, that the world will be safe." And so the main character just dismisses this as complete psycho talk, but then as the movie goes along, there is evidence to suggest that maybe the brother is onto something, and so they're in for the night of their lives as they go into a psychological battleground. So whether or not this brother is in fact telling the truth is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on I Trapped the Devil. This is definitely a blind experience for me. I really didn't know what to expect. This is a movie that no one really talks about. I saw the score on IMDb. It got a very low score, but I know better than to judge a movie based on the majority of people and what they actually think, is because sometimes movies have got a very low score on IMDb, but I've really appreciated them. And this is a lesson to everybody to judge a movie based on what you think, regardless of what others think. But IMDb can be a good indicator coming into a film whether or not you have your expectations at an all-time high or have your expectations at a very cautious level. And I had them at a cautious level. Although I really didn't expect much, I still thought to myself, well, hopefully this is going to be one of those movies that really impresses me and I like more than others. But the skepticism coming into it, it is lower budget sort of horror film, and so I thought, well, I'm going to give this a fair opportunity. I'm going to make allowances, but hopefully, as I said, this is going to be a hidden gem. So I saw the trailer and I thought to myself, this looks like my kind of film. This looks like a film of Alfred Hitchcock or Roman Polanski, psychological horror. And so I thought, well, I'm really not losing too much by giving this movie a go. And after watching I Trapped the Devil last night, I will say that this is one of the best horror films that I've seen in quite a while, because it pays attention to all the minor details that a lot of horror directors out there these days don't pay attention to. Now, when it comes to horror and it comes to selling horror in the market, it's all about blood, gore, sex, nudity, all that kind of thing, all the cheap tricks, paranormal activity, shaky cam, jump scares, everything that startles you as opposed to genuinely creeps you out. But there are films, and I Trapped the Devil is definitely a clear example of this, that slowly creeps under your skin and understands what it is to be a true horror film. This is one of the most anxiety-inducing experiences I've had in a very long time, because of the fact that Josh Lobo pays attention to those minor details that are extremely hard to craft, but if they're crafted well, they can make a film. And this is exactly the case with I Trapped the Devil, is that not only is it visually very awkward and very tense, but the score to this movie, it's one of the best scores, and it creates the monster inside your head. Is that this is a movie that had me on the edge of my seat with not much going on the screen, but it's because of the atmosphere, it's because of that invisible net that Josh Lobo engulfs the viewer with and slowly just sucks the air out of the world. It becomes a very vulnerable experience. Me, as a viewer, I didn't have control at any point of this movie. Now, a lot of these types of movies, they start off very well, they have the slow burn tension, they have the qualities that are reminiscent of Alfred Hitchcock and Roman Polanski, but then they use their aces up too early. And so after that, all the suspense, all the intrigue is gone, and it just patters out to a weak sort of movie, a very forgettable film. But Josh Lobo never uses his ace, is that he has a lot of uncertainty, has a lot of grey matter, and that grey matter and uncertainty creates that vulnerability, and it goes right up into the very end. And so the end explains things to a degree, but there's still that window of opportunity to interpret what this movie is all about. Is the brother insane? Or is this man in the basement the devil? And because you can't go to either side, you're stuck in the middle. You're like this thing that's just bouncing from wall to wall. There's evidence to suggest that he is psychotic. There's evidence to suggest that this guy is the devil. And you keep going back and forth, and because there's no safety barrier, because there's no one holding your hand telling you what this movie is about, it just becomes a very mature experience. And it's a mature experience, as I said, that made Roman Polanski and Alfred Hitchcock so good, is that it was about the atmosphere, it was about the tension, it was about the suspense, it was about everything you can't see as opposed to something that you can see. And so visually I thought this movie was very arresting. It was very claustrophobic. This is a film that felt like a stage play, in that it had very limited characters, and so the emphasis was on that atmosphere. The atmosphere needed to be good. The atmosphere needed to be a character of its own. And I just thought it was an incredibly impressive display of old school horror, and that horror tension that can slowly get on your nerves and really creep you out. The hairs on the back of your neck standing up. And I actually thought this movie, as I said, was genuinely scary. And so not only are the visuals great, the soundtrack and the score is absolutely phenomenal. The score really dictates the horror sense, and usually I hate when scores dictate things, but I thought the score in this movie was just so off-putting, and as I said, it just elevates that anxiety-inducing element that this movie has. So this is a film that also reminds a lot of people of a Twilight Zone episode. I haven't seen that episode, so I couldn't really compare it with that, and I don't care if this movie is borrowing ideas off other things. It's just how it tells it, and how it tells this borrowed story, and I just thought the director told it in a way that you don't see very often these days, is that it's everything that is good about horror, and that's the reason why I believe that this movie does have a low score on IMDb. It's because we're used to the normality of horror these days, where it's all about blood, sex, gore, nudity, jump scares, everything that is lazy. But if you really want an experience that will slowly get under your skin and really creep you out, then I Trap the Devil is definitely that. I thought the performances from the acting was very good, especially the brother. Now, it was very important for the brother to really indicate both sides, a side that you can relate to, a side that you could feel very sympathetic for, but a side to him that you could be scared of. Is that, okay, well, maybe this guy is insane, maybe this man in the basement is innocent, but then again, maybe he's right, and maybe the man in the basement is the very dangerous one. And because you don't have a side to really choose and to really root for, that is what creates the uncertainty, and that is what creates the scare factor. And so I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And as I said, the end of the film, at no stage does the director just reveal everything and say, okay, I'm going to explain everything to you. And so that's something I really, really loved. So if I have problems with the movie, I don't really have a problem for me alone, but for other people, as I said, it's for an acquired taste. If you like good old-fashioned horror where it was all about making you feel scared, as opposed to cheap gore and sex and nudity, then it's for you. But for the majority, I can see this movie not being a very popular one, is because it does have a very slow burn feel to it. You have to pay attention to the minor details, which a lot of people don't like to do that. So if you want a Friday night horror film with some popcorn, then I Trap the Devil is probably not for you. And so, as I said, it's for an acquired sort of taste. It's a movie that reminded me of Ty West films. If you're a fan of Ty West, you're going to really like the way that Josh Lobo creates this movie. Ty West is one of the best horror directors in modern times as far as atmospheric horror films are concerned. He can create an atmosphere that reminded me of old-fashioned horror films. And so if you like Ty West, I got a lot of Ty West in this movie. And so it's everything that I want in a horror film, and I was just so pleased by what I got with I Trap the Devil, and it stays as one of my favourite horror films in quite a few years. And so that's saying something. Go out there and see it. I thought this was incredibly impressive. I'm going to give I Trap the Devil 4 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.